My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
In the final chapters of the Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy, the Inner Circle deal with the immediate aftermath of the war with Hybern. Feyre calls a meeting of the Fae courts and humans to renegotiate the treaty first created 500 years ago. Though peace is tentative in their new world and tensions remain high, Feyre and her family return home changed, but hopeful of the days and years to come.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author. This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on characters and themes of this novel.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series spoilers may be discussed with or without warning. Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, death, and depression, will recur throughout the podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we're exploring Sarah J. Maas's most ambitious novel in the Court of Thorns and Roses series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This week, we're discussing chapters 78 through 82 in A Court of Wings and Ruin.
The question we're asking ourselves this week is, as we conclude Feyre's arc in the ACOTAR series, what are our main takeaways?
The themes that we'll see in this section include foreshadowing and starting anew.
We start chapter 78 in much the same way we started the novel, on a battlefield. Except this time, we're seeing it from Feyre's point of view.
Feyre leaves the battlefield with her sisters to go bury one body, their father. But Feyre, rightly so, struggles to leave Rhys. Quote, I nearly begged Rhys to come with us so I didn't have to let go of his hand, which I had not stopped clutching. It's moments like these that are sweet, but it's actually really heartbreaking. This is the beginning of some major PTSD. We think back on Feyre and Mist and Fury and how much she struggled. I bet there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes here, and even though Silver Flames isn't going to be her focus, she's not done developing. She's still growing.
And she's still going to struggle with PTSD.
Yeah, she's still struggling with PTSD, but things have shifted a bit. Feyre realizes that this moment, burying her father, is not meant to be with Rhys. Quote, I knew deep down that it was only for my sisters and me. The awareness is genuinely impressive. I'm sure she wants to be with her partner, anyone would, but she needs this moment to be with her sisters, and that's freaking beautiful. It shows that Feyre will handle this PTSD differently from Mist and Fury Feyre because she's better equipped. This makes sense because we're going to see her wanting to move forward and grow.
I also think it shows a lot of growth on her part because just because she wants Rhys to be with her isn't necessarily what her sisters want. And she's doing what's best for her sisters right now.
Absolutely. It's nice that she's not a, can my boyfriend come?
Yeah, exactly.
Person where it's like, can't you do something without them?
Yep.
Turns out she can. Big time.
She can.
We talk a lot about bathing and cleansing in this book and the last because there's a lot of significance to it, which is why I really want to look at this moment. Feyre and her sisters are going to go to their father, and Nesta doesn't talk as she grabs the bucket of water from Elaine's, quote, still bloody hands, while Feyre just goes and follows them. In this moment, Elaine's hands are bloody, as if there's guilt associated with that, but it's Nesta who takes the bucket to clean their father. She is the one who has the metaphorical blood on her hands. At least that's what Nesta believes. Nesta is trying to clean their father to wash away her sins, except she doesn't clean him, and she hasn't washed away her sins. In Silver Flames, we see a more crude version of Nesta. It's a little shocking, at least it was for me, but then we see Nesta spit on the king's corpse right now, and that's a level of savagery I respect. It's also very unladylike, and we're seeing Nesta start to give up on the values that she once held. It feels like the sisters enter a different world when they reach their father. Quote, "The screams and moaning of the wounded was a distant wall of sound, another world away from the sun-dappled clearing, from the blood still fresh on the moss and grass." I will always look at the meaning of plants when it comes to SJM, so I looked up moss, and moss symbolizes simplicity and humility. And the blood is what's staining that. It shows that there's nothing to be proud of here, that this moment has been stained.
As the Archeron sisters head toward the clearing where the King of Hybern's and Papa Archeron's bodies lay, there are two significant details that we see and I want to discuss. As Jack mentioned, the clearing is sun-dappled. In the presence of death, the sun is still here, and it's kind of an interesting choice because the sun is dappled, which means we can assume that there are leaves from the trees surrounding the clearing or clouds in the sky that are blocking some of the sun so only parts of it peek through. In some ways, perhaps, the presence of the sun implies hope, but it is also overshadowed or overtaken by sadness, and in Nesta's case, anger and self-hatred. There are also crows present, but they are only picking at the corpse of the King of Hybern and not Papa Archeron. It's a fitting end for the king, perhaps. Crows are also symbolic of evil and death in literature, so it's very intentional for the crows to be picking at the corpse of the king who epitomized those two things. I know we had a lot to say about Papa Archeron last episode, but just because he's a bad father doesn't mean he's evil, hence why the crows leave his body alone.
I love that point so much.
Yeah, when SJM wrote this scene, she very clearly calls out the crows are picking at the corpse of the king, but not their dad, and it's so intentional.
Oh yeah, totally. Elaine is the one to really prepare their father's body. Quote, "Elaine quietly washed his face, combed out his hair and beard, straightened his clothes. She found flowers somewhere. She laid them at his head, on his chest." As we discussed last episode, Papa Archeron is a narcissist. Now, I'm not saying that a person wouldn't want to prepare the body for burial, but Elaine is the one who cleaned him, who prepared him, and went the extra mile of getting flowers for his head. And dare I say it's a crown of flowers, a crown? And on his chest. Elaine is able to understand what he would need/want even in death. She even continues to adjust his flowers before being willing to step away. All the while, Feyre and Nesta just watch.
I think it's a perfect analogy to how they treated him in life.
Mm-hmm.
Feyre and Nesta just watched, while Elaine is the one who doted on him.
Yeah.
And we see that even in death.
Yeah.
I love that Elaine asks if they should say a prayer before they burn their father's body. Because as Feyre recalls, quote, "We did not have such things in the human world." To me, this is significant, a sign that Elaine is perhaps beginning to straddle the line of being Fey and human more than she has in the past.
You know what I'm realizing is that the fact that she was like, should we say a prayer versus say last words?
Mm-hmm.
None of them volunteered to say goodbye. They have to say other words in order to say goodbye because none of them really know how.
There's a great point. Instead of speaking from the heart, let's just say something that's kind of rote and memorized.
Yeah, because if it was from the heart, it'd be like, well, he showed up, I guess. Fuck you still. Just note that Feyre says Nesta's face does not shift even when Feyre sets their father on fire. She just watches him burn. We can see Nesta shut down so much in this final sequence of chapters.
And it's really setting up for the start of Silver Flames.
Brutally so.
Brutal. Question. What do we think it is that brings Lucien to the clearing at this moment?
I have so many thoughts on this. It's thank God we have a podcast where I can say those thoughts. I feel like I can guarantee that Lucien found Elaine through the mating bond. And after a major war, and after he finds out that Elaine was the one who stabbed the king, we know that Lucien went running for them because he's out of breath. Like, Feyre calls that out. Lucien shows up the moment they say goodbye to their father, and he looks the opposite of how their father did. Papa Archeron was clean. He didn't get bloody. Even his death was clean and tidy, and Elaine put him all together. While Lucien is described as having gore on him, and his clothes are torn and his weapon is still bloody. He's there to show that he is the exact opposite of their father, which is what Elaine needs. And it also shows that Lucien is there at Elaine's greatest time of need.
I wonder if during the final battle, because of the mating bond, he felt her fear as she's running to save Nesta and Cassian, and then felt her sadness when she realized that her father was dead.
Yeah.
And that pulled him towards her.
Oh, I love that. I really hope we get flashbacks to this time.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to know from their points of view.
Absolutely. And then you're going to hear me kind of be like, Lucien and Elaine are really cute throughout this episode. So Lucien and Elaine are really cute because when Lucien jokes about not wanting to go to war again, Elaine smiles at him. Like, you guys, that's a slow burn. That's what we're getting with, right? Like, this is the beginning of a slow burn, and that's fan-fucking-tastic. I actually wrote fan-fucking-tastic.
I saw.
I know, but they don't see it.
I love that Feyre hugs Lucien, kind of to distract Lucien from Elaine, but also it's a sign of how far they've come. And it's so at odds with the way that Feyre viewed and treated Lucien at the start of the novel.
I think it also is kind of like showing Elaine, hey, we can trust him. You know, like Lucien and Feyre are definitely friends. Yes, they've come a long, long way. But I'm hoping Elaine's like, okay, we can trust him because, you know, she was wary of him at first.
She was wary of him because Feyre was wary of him as well.
And like, you know, he was with the people who kidnapped her.
Right.
Understandable.
It is.
Yeah, but if you haven't been kidnapped at the beginning of a relationship, is it really even a relationship? I've been reading a lot of Mafia.
And a lot of hunting at Elaine.
Yeah, but you know what? Feyre was kind of kidnapped by Rhys.
And Tamlin.
Love. No, it's not. Please, I want everyone to know that this was all...
She's joking.
I'm
Tongue
joking.
in cheek.
LOL. JK.
When Feyre comments that Lucien sounds like Vassa's acolyte, because Lucien's talking about Vassa, quote, Lucien blushed, glancing at Elaine. There's definitely a lack of denial on Lucien's part when Feyre says this. I wonder if this implies that there might be some attraction between Lucien and Vassa. At least that's what it is in my head. And I feel like this is setting up a very nasty love triangle in the future for Elaine.
We're going to get a love triangle. We're going to get a love square. Like, we have spoilers for Silver Flame. No, we're done with that. Silver Flame's like, you should have known by now. Anyway, it's like, so we have Azriel, Elaine, and Gwyn. People are pointing out that I don't say that name correctly. We have that triangle. And then we have Lucien, Elaine, and Vassa. And then later on, I'm going to introduce other people for Vassa. Really, I think we're going to go into a love octagon.
I think it's a love spider web. There's just a lot of different connections now.
I think you're right. But I do believe Vassa is going to be kind of a red herring. I think Elaine will be jealous of Vassa. And that'll be part of the reason why Elaine starts cozying up to Daddy Azzy. But I'm going to get more into that later.
When Feyre leads Lucien away from the clearing, she allows her sisters to decide what they want to do. Elaine decides to follow Feyre and Lucien. In a lot of ways, this represents Elaine following them into the future, or maybe just moving past the trauma of the war. This feels like the case to me when Elaine doesn't take ownership for the killing blow against Hybern when Lucien comments it because she's kind of over it. Nesta, on the other hand, does not follow and stays behind in the clearing. By doing so, Nesta traps herself in her anger and her resentment toward her father, setting up her state of mind in Silver Flames.
I love the Elaine's over it. It just kind of reminds me like, oh, guys, that was so 5 hours ago. Get with it. I mean, what? A girl can't kill the king of Hybern?
Yeah.
Do it once and suddenly that's my identity? Jeez. A garden. Can make a mean loaf of bread.
I love that Elaine now has a very deep voice.
Very complex. Hey, Azriel. Want you to kiss me? Anyway, a little bit more of obsessing for me with Elaine and Lucien. Elaine keeps looking up at Lucien as if she can't help herself. While Elaine is choosing to move forward, she's also admiring her mate. This is the most honest and pure version of her in my mind, because everything's been washed away, right? Like, she's faced a lot of stuff and she's just like in the most pure moment checking him out. Then Elaine invites Lucien to Velaris. I think I'm going to read you the quote. Quote, "I nudged Elaine, who blinked at me, then blurted, 'You can come to Velaris.' I do believe that's meant to be Elaine inviting Lucien to Velaris, but there's going to be a couple things that SJM writes in these final chapters that Amy and I are questioning. What's the meaning here? Because you could read that as Feyre saying it. I nudged Elaine, who blinked, then blurted, 'You can come to Velaris.'"
Yeah, it's almost a garden path sentence. And what that is a sentence that, depending on how it's read, could mean two different things. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it could be read that Elaine said it, but the way it's written, it is also possible that Feyre said it.
Yes. But this is we choose to believe that Elaine said it household?
I believe Elaine said it.
Yes. We're going to get another one of those later.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it. When Feyre goes to her tent to change and rest, she happens upon Rhys talking with Miriam and Draken. There seems to be a lot of setup that goes on in chapter 79. And by that, I mean that there's a lot of information that's given to us that I think is going to come into play later. Spoiler, none of this information has come to fruition yet, but I wonder if it will be in the next book that we get. For example, there's a momentary truce between Prince Draken, Miriam, and Jurian, and what's said feels like it might come up again because it's all mysterious. Also, there's the fact that the cauldron is going to Crtea with Miriam and Draken, where there is already a hidden object of power, and that feels relevant and like it will come back.
It's going to come back so hard.
I don't see how it won't.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get our own Miriam and Draken series.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way. I think the fact that Miriam is a witch and was said in passing, as we discussed last episode, is going to come back. And I really think it's going to come back for somebody's story, but not theirs. It's just going to be they're going to go to Miriam and Draken for help, I think.
I could imagine a novella or just like a one-shot book of the war, the original First War.
Oh, okay.
I always imagine that we would get that story one day, unless SJM's like, I have too many other things. You guys can use your imagination.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
At one point, Feyre says that she likes Miriam instantly, and we all know how I feel about that. Not a fan. Don't trust it. But this one is believable to me because Feyre notes that while Miriam has Fey ears, she has a human face. And I think that humanity still calls to Feyre. We also start to see a different side of Rhys, the more carefree and happier side, and he's embracing his victory right away. And I do like that he can't get off the ground.
I felt that in my bones.
She's like, what? She's mad at him. Like, what are you doing?
He's like, I'm an old person. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I feel that. Feyre decides to call the High Lord meeting 2.0. What I love is that it's not just a parallel to the original High Lord meeting a handful of chapters ago, but it's the fact that Feyre is owning the calling of the meeting, and it makes her the boss lady that she is. She's the High Lady of the Night Court. Think about it this way. For the initial High Lord meeting, Feyre let Rhys own that process. This time, she's owning it, and that is emphasized by the fact that the meeting will be in her family's destroyed estate.
There's something very meaningful and vulnerable about this meeting being held at the Archeron estate. Feyre is showing her former human side. She's showing how her family's home was destroyed and that it doesn't make her weaker. That is a lesson that she learned from the Ouroboros.
That is a great point, and I love it because I saw it a little bit differently. I felt like there was something really poetic about the fact that the High Lord 2.0 meeting is taking place in the Archeron estate because it was the home of humans paid for by a High Lord, Tamlin, High Lord of the Spring Court. Although the estate has been destroyed, there's a sense of balance here of the human and Fey world in this estate, and that makes it the perfect place for this meeting where they're going to discuss a new world made up of humans and Fey. Also, the symbolism of the destroyed house reflects Prythian in a way, with all the walls and barriers the courts and humans have put up against their neighbors torn down. All of this is emphasized to me by Feyre's words at the end of the chapter as soon as she opens the meeting. Quote, "My name is Feyre Archeron. I was once human, and now I am Fey. I call both worlds my home, and I would like to discuss renegotiating the treaty."
you're about to make a point on this meeting and the fact that it's happening at night. But before you can, I'm going to make my point first so it can be weird and timing wise. I think that, yes, it's great that this is happening at night for Vasa because, she can't show up as a bird. It's just embarrassing. She's naked as a bird. Do you think she's wearing like a little cape? No.
She probably can't talk either.
That too. But she's a naked bird, Amy. You don't see Donald Duck wearing, he doesn't wear pants, which is concerning. Wow. Okay. But I want to point out that this is also Feyre being High Lady of the Night Court because it's happening at night. She is in her element. It's a representation of her power.
That's a great point, Jack. And as you said, it is night. The sun is setting as everybody's come together. Also, as Jack said,
Vasa doesn't have clothes or pants.
The meeting has to take place at night for Vasa to be able to participate, regardless of form or clothing situation.
I want to make a little jacket for her Firebird self. I want to crochet something for her.
It needs to be fireproof.
Yes, that is true.
Good luck. I wonder, though, by taking place at night, is it a cause for worry? We've seen that in all of the battles where our heroes have been victorious, the sun has been present. So is it possible amidst this negotiation, if the sun is not present, that they will not be victorious? Just food for thought. There's also another use of the sun in this section that I want to bring up. Feyre mentions that as she slept the night before, quote, I hadn't let go of Rhys until dawn had leaked into our tent. The sun and mates are back, and just want to celebrate that.
I have fallen asleep and held hands with someone the whole night long. And while it's super sweet, I had the worst kink in my neck.
I was going to say, that's just asking for cramps in your hand or in your neck or in your back.
I'm really impressed that unconscious me really wanted to keep holding. Her and I are not aligned.
I like the note from Feyre that the seating was very much planned for this meeting, and they had decided in advance who would sit where. This feels like the opposite of the High Lords meeting, the original one, which was haphazard and was determined by when people showed up. And we all know how that went. Leave it to men to mess things up.
Mm-hmm. Fails. Fails.
When Eris arrives, he walks by Lucien, and Feyre sees, quote, something like sadness, like regret. And I'm not going to analyze it because we don't have enough information, but it just makes me want to know Eris more, and I cannot wait to learn more of his backstory. Sarah is setting up so much, and it just makes me hungry for the next book.
You know what? I've already forgiven Eris of everything, because I know he's probably done so much behind the scenes to make everyone safe and better.
I agree. He's not a bad guy in my head anymore.
You know what? Prove to me that he's a bad guy.
Good luck.
Good luck. Think I'm unwilling to see reason? Ha! Laugh at your face. As all the High Lords arrive, there's a particular moment that I want to talk about when Tamlin arrives. Quote, Tamlin crossed the threshold moments later. And as we all know, thresholds mean change. It could be that Tamlin has changed back to his old self, especially since he's still so cold to Lucien when he realizes that Lucien is wearing Illyrian leathers. Although it's not like Tamlin minded back in Mist and Fury, but whatever. Okay.
Because Mist and Fury, Tamlin wore them.
I know, right? But it's like, okay, sure, Tamlin. Look, he has great thighs, as we've learned, and they really accentuate them. But in the next chapter, Feyre is going to relay her story, and Tamlin isn't the villain, something I'll get into more. But I think that Tamlin crossing the threshold isn't about Tamlin changing. It's about Feyre's perspective of him changing.
I think that's a great point.
Thank you.
Let's talk about another change. When Grayson shows up, we learn that he has a fresh cut down his cheek. There are two potential reasons I can think of for why SJM chose to do this. 1. Grayson's persona was previously that of a knight in shining armor. With a cut on his cheek, that persona is tarnished. He's no longer perfect. And something about it actually seems kind of sinister, too, like he's now a villain. So, there's that. Who knows what role he'll play in the future? It could be foreshadowing something.
I didn't even think about him coming back as a villain in the future books.
Why not?
I don't know. I didn't think about it until now. That's such a good point.
Here's a second reason. The scar on Grayson's cheek is giving me Lucien vibes. When we see fan art of Lucien, particularly around his middle eye, he has a lot of scars. And I think there is a parallel there.
I think it's meant to be a parallel of what's to come, and maybe even something that every time Elaine sees Lucien, she thinks of Grayson. Either way, it just feels like there's a whole lot of subplot going on with Elaine. And sorry, going back to Grayson turning evil. I'm not done with that yet. It did not register with me during prep. But like, who's he still friends with? Him and his family.
Jurian?
The Queens.
The Queens.
The Queens.
That we know of. We don't know.
Yeah, but I also like wouldn't be too surprised if he, you know, like partners up with the evil queens, and then Vasa needs to, you know, journey.
I guess only time will tell. I'm going to be saying that a lot this episode.
Look, I just feel like if we become friends with Sarah, she'll tell us. No.
We can't be trusted to keep our mouths shut.
Yes, we can. She could be listening right now. You can trust us, Sarah. Don't worry. Don't listen to her. You can trust me. We don't have to tell her.
You know you tell me everything.
I know. I'm trying to think of the last time I kept a secret.
From me?
Yeah.
Never.
No. It's like, I've even told you months in advance of what I'm going to get you for presents. And then you forget.
Yeah.
And even then I still tell you what no.
When Vasa shows up, she storms over the threshold. Her hair is unbound, and she's beautiful. She sounds like a force to be reckoned with. And, as Feyre says, quote, young feeling, coltish, fierce and untamed. Coltish. A colt is a young male horse. Not a doe, like Feyre was in Thorns and Roses, but something about it feels similar. I'm sure that image is going to come back around at some point. We get to see more of Vasa's character in a short amount of time and how she acts with Nesta and Feyre. And do we like it? I don't know.
No, I don't. I can say it. I don't like it. I don't like that Vasa comes up to them and is like, your father was more of a father to me than my father. And they're like, great. Our father was more of a father to you than
he was to us.
Like, what the fuck? Who says that?
She was probably trying to honor his death. I don't know.
It's like, hey, I know you haven't seen him in a really long time, because I'm sure she knows how long it's been. But I want you to know that as the person that he spent the last month, maybe even year with, he was great to me.
Yeah, it's kind of shitty.
Yeah. She knows no tact, but that sounds about right with her.
I think it's significant that Elaine is not around for this exchange. I think Elaine and Vasa can't have a positive interaction right now because it's likely that there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding and tension between them regarding Lucien. So SJM has to keep them apart. Otherwise, all this setup that she's doing now would be ruined.
Yeah, we're getting too much tension too soon. Like, if we do that, we have to ease it out. We haven't even hit Silver Flames, but God, one day when we cover Silver Flames.
One day.
It'd be fascinating. So, yes, Vasa is definitely going to be the reason why Elaine shies away from Lucien. Now, to my Vasa theories, I have two of them. And I think this is the main theory is that I think she's a red herring. I think this has nothing to do with her because I think her OTPs are someone else. Yes.
And she's redheaded. Red herring? Red?
Yeah. Also, she's not going to end up with another redhead. It's not how it works.
No comment.
No, but in characters in here.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not saying in life. I'm talking about characters in the book.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
No, I think Lady of Autumn and Baron are both redheaded.
Yeah, and they're a bad match.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's fair. Good matches are not both redheaded.
And that's just in this world, not in life. I'm sure there are lovely redheaded couples. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm teasing you.
Okay. No, you should, because someone's going to get mad. This one person looks at their redheaded husband and their redheaded children. And they're like, wait a minute. So I'm going to get my first unhinged theory out of the way. But you know what? I think my unhinged theory has some legs. So I have no basis for this. It's pure speculation, but I think there's a chance that Mor and Vasa might get together. We know that Mor was in love with a human queen, and SJM loves good parallels. So I think it's totally possible that history could repeat itself, but this time with a happy ending. Now, in order to support this, I looked into Vasa being a firebird. First, we have to recognize that Vasa stands for Vasilisa, which is a Russian name, and there's a Russian folklore about a firebird. There's a memoir, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I really am sorry, but I will try. There's a memoir about Sergei Fetisov, and his memoir is titled Firebird, and that tells the story about his time in the Russian army in the 1970s and how he fell in love with another soldier, and the two men had to keep their romance a secret.
An LGBTQ memoir?
Yeah. Titled Firebird.
Vasa might be queer.
Vasa might be queer. I'm just
We
throwing
don't
that
know.
out there. Okay, but here's my second theory, and I think this one is probably closer to what's more likely, and that I think that Vasa will likely end up with Jurian. So the first reason being that Jurian very much stands with the humans. He fought for the humans in his first life, and he continues to fight for the humans in what I will call his second life. So it makes sense that he would be with a human queen. Like I mentioned, there's a Russian folklore about a firebird named Vasilisa, or as we shall say, Vasa. So in this folklore, an archer and his horse are tasked by the king to bring back the firebird/woman so that the king can marry her. After being tricked to go back to the king, Vasilisa says that she can't get married unless she's wearing a dress that's hidden under a rock in the middle of the deep sea. After the archer brings back the dress to the king, Vasilisa refuses to marry the king, and the king gets so angry that he decides to put the archer in boiling water. Now, at this time, his horse puts a spell on the archer to protect him, and when the archer comes out, he is perfect and he is beautiful. The king is instantly jealous and jumps into the boiling water to hope for the same results. Instead, he dies. The archer is then appointed as the new king and marries Vasilisa. Who else has been made anew after going into a pot or maybe cauldron? Jurian. And also, as you mentioned earlier, Vasa was compared to a colt, which is a horse. So while Feyre and Elaine had a lot of those doe imagery, I think it's fair to say that we're going to associate the horse with Vasilisa, or Vasa.
Which, spoiler for Frost and Starlight, who now owns a bunch of land with a bunch of horses on it. More.
Oh, forgot about that.
Who knows? Who knows?
You know, thruple.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. That's my answer to everything in books. Thruple.
Why choose?
Yeah.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
At the end of the chapter, Feyre begs Nesta to stay and join the meeting, even though Nesta is kind of being is trying to hedge and is trying to get away, holding on to a carving that her father made. Luckily, Feyre does convince Nesta, and Nesta takes Feyre's hand as they both go into the meeting. It's so sad that this is their last positive interaction for a very long time, because to me, this shows that Nesta really does need her sister, and Nesta's the one who pushes her away.
Like, she just wants her to be happy.
Yeah.
Feyre wants to hold her hand and just stand side by side, and that's not Nesta's journey yet. But it will be. It will. I really, really want to see how everyone else ends up, but I really need scenes of Nesta and Feyre post Silver Flames and what their relationship is like.
Yeah, I agree. The first sentence of chapter 80 really stood out to me. Quote, "A world divided was not a world that could thrive." It struck me that this sentence about Prythian parallels Feyre's journey in season 1. When Jac and I analyzed Thorns and Roses, we spoke a lot about how Feyre was surviving, not thriving, and how she struggled to balance her masculine and feminine. Feyre was divided internally and unable to thrive, just like Prythian is struggling to do so now.
I immediately thought about Surviving, Not Thriving, merch available online on her Etsy shop. But I immediately thought about that as well, and how amazing it is that we've come full circle. And Feyre's quest is no longer about surviving. They defeated Hybern. She's now looking to thrive, and not just her, but all of Prythian, for everyone. Talk about growth. Feyre tells her story and notes that she's telling it to friends, strangers, and Tamlin. Quote, "I explained the years of poverty, the trials under the mountain, the love I had found and let it go, the love that had healed me and saved me." What struck me is that this is the story I wish Feyre had told at the original High Lords meeting earlier in this book. That the way that Feyre got to where she is, it's a lot more complex and justifiable. Feyre even gives the Ouroboros, again, credit here because she's able to tell the story because she's faced her true self. The second part is how Feyre described Tamlin. At the start of the book, when Feyre tells Lucien her story, he says he didn't realize he was a villain in her story. Now it sounds like Feyre doesn't tell the story the same way she used to. It doesn't really sound like Tamlin is the villain. While Feyre doesn't hide that she needed healing, she does give voice that she loved Tamlin and it was a love that she had to let go.
I'm so glad you brought this up because it's so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
These are extreme changes.
Yeah.
But the mention of them is so underplayed that it's so easy to miss. But it is a huge change for Feyre to be like, I did love Tamlin and I let him go.
And if it was said in a way that was, I don't know, not harmful to him, but like in a way that put Tamlin down, he would have said something.
Right.
And it sounds like she was mostly uninterrupted when she told her story.
Yep.
Which means this was probably the first time Tamlin got to hear the truth.
Yeah.
No judgment, no self-defense.
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
It's so crazy. I want to be a fly
on the wall in the room.
Yeah, that's what I want to wish for a genie, is like if I can be in a story, but either invisible as a main character or as a side character. That's what I want.
Okay. No longer eating lava.
I said multiple wishes. But multiple. I would still want to eat lava. That's one of my wishes. If I could ask a genie, is if I could play with lava and eat it.
As everyone departs from the High Lord 2.0 meeting, Feyre, quote, sighed, leaning my head against the cracked stone doorframe. The grand wooden door had been shattered completely, the splinters still scattered on the marble entry behind me. This series started with Tamlin shattering the door of the Archeron family cottage and taking Feyre from her home. It's now ending with a shattered door in the Archeron estate that was provided by Tamlin, and Feyre is leaving the splinters and fractured pieces of that history behind her. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It all has to happen the way that it's happened.
Yep.
So I don't know where Elaine is in this moment, but if Feyre sees this, then I'm going to say that Elaine sees this too. Quote, Vasa still remained inside, chatting with Lucien animatedly. Lucien, surprisingly, was chuckling, his shoulders loose and his head angled while he listened. Elaine was just in a meeting where she was watching Grayson probably the entire time, and he was ignoring her the entire time. Hell, she's still wearing the engagement ring at this point. She's still hurting with Grayson, and it's once again another rejection. So what do we do when we've been rejected and we're in pain? It's very natural and normal to go seek validation somewhere else, to feel desired. So who better to do that than her mate? My money is that Elaine sees Lucien and Vasa together and becomes jealous and holds it against him.
In the future.
In the future.
We need Elaine's point of view to tell us that.
Yeah. Or everyone, whoever's listened to this whole entire thing, just go write this fanfic for us, please.
When the inner circle winnow back to Velaris, what's the first thing Feyre sees? It's sunlight coming through the windows, a sign of hope and comfort after days and weeks of uncertainty. She also hears the sound of children laughing in the streets, the hallmark of Velaris and a sign that peace still reigns.
Children, it's a hallmark of peace, of home, of life anew. It's almost as if it starts to plant the ideas of having a bébé.
A bébé?
Un bébé will come to them soon.
Despite the fact that the townhome is the same and Velaris is untouched, Feyre recognizes the fact that she and her family themselves are changed, a realization she also had after the attack in the summer court. Quote, "Even though we had all bathed, as we stood there was a grime to us, like the blood hadn't entirely washed off, and I realized that home was indeed the same, but we, perhaps, were not." The idea of bathing has come back, and what it means to be clean. But this time, I don't know if the cleansing is related to cleansing sins and mistakes. Instead, the grime Feyre still feels could be the trauma of war, and the loss and hurt each of the inner circle have suffered in the process of trying to save those they love.
There is a lot of trauma, and no one has it more or deals with it more poorly than Nesta. And as we discover, Nesta hasn't eaten, she hardly speaks, and she's struggling big time. She is losing her power, her metaphorical food power.
The idea of the group having changed is emphasized by Amren's coy comment, quote, "I suppose I shall have to eat real food now." This is funny, yes, but also a stark reminder to us as readers that Amren's not as powerful as she once was. The being who only consumed blood is now reduced to regular food and is now reduced to regular human and fae food. It also does an excellent job of underscoring Feyre's point that they've all changed. Amren's trauma from battle is just more obvious than the traumas everyone else has experienced.
Shout out to Elaine for actually making a joke and smiling. You go, girl.
As Jac just pointed out, and as she pointed out with the whole Nesta not eating, there are several small actions and reactions among the inner circle that we see in this chapter that begin to set the foundation for Silver Flames, and even in Frost and Starlight. In addition to the observations Jac has made, Amren and Nesta are testy with one another, which is definitely going to play a role. And Feyre and Elaine know Nesta is suffering because of their father's death, but they don't know how to help her, so they're just going to wait until Nesta's ready for help.
That's not how it... No.
It's not how it works.
That's not how it works. This is one of those moments where, I think we're very much like, now they're off to the sunset, and they're good characters, and, they don't make mistakes anymore. Not that that's what people think, but that is such a huge, flawed moment to not help their sister and to make that choice of, let her be, that I understand why Feyre feels guilty in Silver Flames. You should feel guilty. You watched it happen and you didn't step up and be there for your sister when she needed it.
Yep.
It does make me very frustrated.
Yes, I agree.
But Silver Flames handles it beautifully. Feyre writes a note to Tamlin, and it's somehow even shorter than her first note that she wrote to him in Mist and Fury. Here it is. Quote, "Thank you. I hope you find happiness too." End quote. It's pretty big of Feyre to have sent this. Me, as someone who likes to overwrite, I personally feel like I would have made it a tad bit longer. He did go and save Rhys and everything like that, but Feyre doesn't owe him anything. She doesn't have to make it any longer than that. He should be happy.
As we see in the future, she just doesn't want to give Tamlin her energy.
Yeah. I mean, what's the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference.
Yep. I think she's gotten to a point where she's grateful for what he did, but she doesn't really care to know anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the perfect, like, this is the perfect level of indifference of like, good luck. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
The chapter ends with Elaine wanting to garden the same way that Feyre wanted to paint at the end of Mist and Fury. So we are proud of Elaine.
And it's just a great parallel.
It is a great parallel. Still a little mad at her, at both of them. I haven't forgiven them from 2 points ago. As we start chapter 81, Amy and I kind of went back and forth on this, debating, and then we realized that neither of us are wrong. It was just not written well. No, not that it wasn't written well. We're just not entirely sure of what SJM meant. So I'm going to read, quote, "The blooms Elaine Archeron had tended these past weeks." That's what Rhys is saying. This is Rhys's point of view. And I kind of interpreted this as weeks have passed. And here we are a few weeks later. Stuff has bloomed. Yay.
And to clarify, you're saying that you think weeks have passed between chapter 80 and chapter 81.
Yes, correct.
So I interpret it differently because we know in chapter 80, Rhys excuses himself to go find food in the kitchen. He is currently in the kitchen, and Elaine's been in the garden as one of her, like, healing activities, right? So to me, this is same day, same time. While everybody is in the living room drinking, Rhys has just stepped aside to be alone.
And then the next chapter, the final chapter, when it's Feyre's point of view, that one, did we agree? Like, that one still, that is weeks away, or weeks have passed, because she does say we haven't had any time together.
I still think it's the same evening.
It's, because weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, where's the book? Okay, so you're about to read the part where Feyre talks about them.
"We sat in silence for a long time. We'd barely had a moment alone in the aftermath of the battle and had been too tired to do anything but sleep."
Okay, so that's still not enough information, Sarah.
Yeah, and so for me, I assume 80, 81, 82 all happen in the same day.
Yeah. Either way, this just kind of comes into
lack of clarity.
That doesn't really contribute too much to the conversation, but it was interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's worth pointing out because as writers, I think you need to make it very clear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can be very confusing.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Also, by the way, what the fuck is up with Rhys calling his sister-in-law Elaine Archeron? Like, he used her full name.
Yeah. He's never done that before. Why would he need to?
Why?
So we're still in chapter 81, and there's only 2 comments I want to make about Rhys's point of view. First off, SJM is ending the novel the same way she started, with Rhys's point of view. It's also a major juxtaposition from where we found Rhys in the prologue. If you recall, instead of Rhys searching for Cassian on a battlefield of dead Illyrians, Cassian and Azriel find Rhys in the kitchen in his home. Rhys is the one who died, not his friends, which is what he suspected and feared would happen for years. And that's kind of a beautiful flip.
Yeah.
Second, we also get some foreshadowing to Frost and Starlight, which I'm going to put here and not in the breadcrumbs. Quote, "I looked ahead, toward Feyre's laugh, that light and that vision of the future Feyre had shown me, more beautiful than anything I could have ever wished for, anything I had wished for, on those long ago solitary nights with only the stars for company. A dream still unanswered, but not forever." What Rhys doesn't know is that this dream of having children is going to get answered real fast, but it's also going to cause him a lot of terror and stress and angst.
Yeah. Yep. My question to this is that it's a very short chapter and we don't really get a lot out of it. Was it necessary? I think your answer may surprise us.
Do I think it's necessary? I don't know that it does. Stylistically, I understand the choice.
Yeah. Stylistically, it's necessary. Or not necessary. Stylistically, it makes total sense.
Stylistically, it makes sense. But that's about it. I don't know that it does anything for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a nice additional wrap up.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just that extra, no, Rhys is happy type thing.
Yeah. And he's grateful to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Feyre at the start of her new life.
As he should be grateful. Like she had to scream for people to do that.
It's true. At the start of chapter 82, Feyre is wearing her free gift from the Sexy Chicken lingerie shop, and for a limited time, you too can own a pair of red lacy underthings with a matching sheer nightgown for the low price of free $99. Just visit us down at the Rainbow of Valoris and show us how you kill Hybern soldiers to secure your spicy gift.
Like people show up with severed heads.
I did it!
I did it. What more do you want? You're like, that's not a Hybern army. That's your neighbor Joe. I recognize it.
So morbid. I wonder if Nesta and Elaine got sexy underthings as well.
When?
Because they also helped.
That would require them to go. Feyre did that trip on her own.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, she did that. One day we have to start a lingerie line.
I know.
It's just...
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be. And it'll be so funny to have, like, here you are. You have Victoria's Secret. You have Fenty. And Sexy Chicken lingerie.
We can shorten it to Sexy Chick lingerie.
Or SCL.
SCL. All joking aside, it is a nice touch that Feyre is wearing this little outfit for Rhys while he's on the roof. The first time Rhys sent her images of the lingerie shop was after he and Feyre spent time on the roof, so it comes back full circle.
So it's implied that they haven't had too much time yet to have sex. I'm not saying that they haven't had sex at all. You know, maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But what's important, though, is that what they're about to do... Sorry, I just had a realization. They go flying after this.
Yeah.
Is she wearing lingerie in the air?
I had the same thought.
Wait a minute. Wait, what?
I had the same thought.
She's wearing a red lacy thing.
And it's sheer.
It's cold.
Yep. Well, no, it's summer.
You're up in the air.
It's cold.
It's colder up there. Her nips, man.
I can't. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I
had the same thought.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to be imagining that for a little while because it's not even like Rhys would tell her to change.
Right.
But like people can see them.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's move on. Either way, sex for Feyre and Rhys is supposed to be healing. It's how Feyre has always coped when it comes to a partner that she loves. And it makes sense that it would end with them having flying foreplay in lingerie. I don't know. I think I would demand him to at least be in his underwear too.
Yeah, I can't be the only one showing off.
Right? Like, I'm just like, he's in his suit and clothing and everything, and she's just wearing a garter and stockings.
Someone wasn't thinking.
I'm just, like when like the Goodyear blimp in the sky.
Yep.
It's like Feyre promoting Sexy Chicken lingerie.
Oh my gosh.
Or like when there's like an airplane that has like a little thing of like, shop now. She's just doing free promo.
Yeah, she's an influencer.
You get free lingerie if you're willing to fly in the sky.
Rhys and Feyre have a small exchange about money, which I bring up because it foreshadows that Feyre is going to be the one keeping track of the books in the future, something we see in Frost and Starlight. Just wanted to point it out because it was there. There are also some other questionable mentions in Rhys and Feyre's conversation that I wonder whether they'll come back into play in a future book. For example, when Feyre mentions that Amryn doesn't have powers, Rhys says, quote, "I'm sure she'll discover some hidden talent to terrorize us with." And that's definitely coming back.
It's so coming back.
There's also the acknowledgement that Bryaxis is nowhere to be found, and Feyre's going to have to go find Bryaxis and bring it back to Valoris. And I'm sure that's going to play a role somewhere too.
Because they need a new puppy Bryaxis. Rhys jokes about not letting the ladies take all the credit for saving everyone, and some of the men had to get a little credit and help a little bit. And it's a funny moment, but I know we talked about this in the last episode, and I want to bring it back up. I never really appreciated that the women are the one who ended the war. And it was done in such a way that it felt natural and right. And when I think about it, it really gives me chills because women are the best, and SJM shows that.
Yeah, and we've really questioned SJM this entire series.
Yeah.
But it took me the last couple episodes to realize, like, no, she's very pro-women.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think some of our questions hasn't been, like, is she against women? There's just, there's always inherent misogyny that's kind of ingrained in us that, pops up. But I just never realized how pro-women she was.
Yeah, because it's not overt in your face.
Yeah, but because the ending is the way that it is, and it's not like a aggressive. It's like, it was so natural. It makes it even more realistic, where it's like, women, once again, the unsung heroes.
Yep.
Except we are being sung now.
When Rhys talks about his death, he mentions hearing Feyre and the thoughts she sent to him to make him stay. Quote, I heard you even in death. It made me look back, made me stay a little longer. This is a subtle yet beautiful nod to the times in this novel that Feyre was told to not look back, and yet she did, especially when Rhys was involved. And it's attention to detail like this that makes me appreciate SJM as a writer.
This is when Feyre and Rhys make their infamous bargain. Quote, when it's time to go there, I said quietly, we go together. It's a bargain, he said, and kissed me gently. And then they get a tattoo. And for whatever reason, when I read it initially, I did not think at all of like, hey, this could come back into play.
Yep.
This could hurt things.
It's a huge, huge breadcrumb for Silver Flames.
And like when I read Silver Flames, I did not think of this moment either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wasn't like, oh, by the way, there was that bargain they made. I just was, I don't know. I just didn't think we'd see it, but I forgot that we did. I'm sure there's someone out there who agrees with me.
We end the novel with Feyre and Rhys flying together. Feyre, for the first time in her immortal life, is flying on her own with no assistance because she has fully come into her own as High Lady. We've seen Feyre struggle with her role and her place in this novel, just like we've seen her struggle with flying. And now Feyre's mastered both, just like she's mastered herself when she looked into the Ouroboros.
And when you think about Mist and Fury, and at the beginning of this book, there's a lot of discussion about Feyre and her journey with free falling. And we really saw that a lot in Mist and Fury, of her just being tossed out and falling down and her freaking out every time it happened until she was able to master it. And then she was able to master flying. And there's a lot of tandem growth happening between her learning how to fly and being a High Lady. And now here she is, no longer free falling. Feyre is flying.
And it's probably the most beautiful and only acceptable way to end Wings and Ruin, celebrating Feyre and her journey.
Yeah, there's wings and they're flying over ruins. They are. They did mention that they're flying over buildings. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong.
It just took away from the feel-good moment that I had.
That's what I do. But you know, here, do you want to know a feel-good moment? No breadcrumbs today.
No breadcrumbs. We talked about them if they existed.
Yeah, we just can't. That was it. We just can't, guys. Just come back for the mini episodes. We cover a lot there.
So, Jacqueline, as we conclude Feyre's arc in the ACOTAR series, what are our main takeaways?
Oh my God. Let me adjust my butt for this. Oh man. What are their not main takeaways from this? You know, it made total sense. This whole entire journey. If we think back to the Feyre who was human in her little hovel, just trying to hunt and fuck and stay alive, and then who we see now, it's an entirely different person, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, every step of the way was believable. And I think what I love the most is that you could never predict where she was going to end up.
Yeah.
I think what I also take away is that character growth is not linear. It's not a straight line.
Yeah.
There were a lot of ups and downs for Feyre.
And even parallels in a way. Like, you know, she didn't progress and she didn't regress, but she went far right, and that was a whole other story too. I think I also really appreciate how it almost feels like, you know, when you watch like a 3-part arc or like any of the Harry Potter movies where it's like directed by different directors and each of them have like their own different vibe. It feels like that too, where each book had its own vibe, where the first book, it was really plot driven.
Mm-hmm.
The second book, it was very character and plot driven.
Mm-hmm.
And then this third book, I take it back, it's character and plot driven again. But it just felt like each of them had such a different mission, and SJM accomplished it every single time.
Yeah. And what I love is that the character development, I think what you're getting at is the vibe of the character development in each one played out differently. In Thorns and Roses, it was very subtle.
Yeah.
And you had to read between the lines.
Yep.
In Mist and Fury, it was more overt because Feyre was dealing with her PTSD. And then in Wings and Ruin, we have a lot of plot and a lot of different things going on.
That you almost miss all the things that's going on with Feyre, but you root for her.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that you're rooting for the bad thing.
Yeah, and you don't realize how much she's growing in the process.
Yeah, I think Wings and Ruin surprised me the most. And I always knew that Wings and Ruin would surprise me the most, other than ACOTAR. That one surprised me with how much I was going to love it. But Wings and Ruin, I think I was just like, we call it her most ambitious novel for a reason.
Right. There's so much that happens.
There's so much that happens. And when you look at it chapter by chapter like we have, it's like, yeah, no, this makes sense. Makes sense why we got here.
And I think we hear a lot of our readers have a hard time moving on to Silver Flames. And Silver Flames really drags for them. And I think it's because we've seen so much growth take place in these 3 novels.
Yeah.
And we've fallen in love with Feyre so much that it's hard to move on from her.
Yeah, and it's hard to move on for her, but also Feyre was always a hero. She was never an anti-hero.
Yeah.
And Nesta is the epitome of an anti-hero.
Yep.
And people really struggle with female anti-heroes.
People do really struggle with female anti-heroes. And I think that's why Feyre is so celebrated, because she is such a great female hero.
She's flawed.
But she checks all the boxes in all the other ways, too.
Yeah, Feyre's always wanted to do the right thing. Like, even though she's flawed, even though she's made wrong choices, even though she can be annoying, she was never an anti-hero. And she was always trying to do the right thing one way or another. And, you know, that's like a very consumable form of storytelling. And it's something that we can all want to get around, like, you know, rally behind, of like, yes, we want our hero to try to move forward in their journey, you know, make mistakes, but they keep going.
Yeah. And I appreciate what SJM's done here, and I appreciate that she tries to do something different in the future.
Yeah. I want to take a beat for ourselves too when it comes to like how long we've been working on this series.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I know that this podcast launched March 1st of 2022, but you and I started this in October of 2021.
Yep.
So we've been in this analysis mode for a year and a half.
Almost 2 years by the time this airs.
Not almost 2 years by the time this airs.
It'll be the end of June.
That's not almost October.
September. Okay, 4 months. It'll be a year and 8 months.
It'll just be like a good chunk of time. Yeah.
20 months is a long time.
It's a toddler.
Yes. Sure.
Like, it's just like we've been doing this for so long, and it's just kind of the weirdest feeling of having this come to an end. And it's so surreal, and I'm just really happy that everyone's been a part of it.
Yeah, and we hope you stick around for what's to come, because it's not like we're done.
Yeah, we are not done. We have a lot more exciting things to do, a lot of SJM.
And a lot of not SJM.
Yeah, but, you know, we're not done with her. So, at that, adieu.
Adieu. Adieu, adieu, adieu.
To you and you and you. Thank you for listening to this season of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we'll begin Season 4, where we will deep dive into Sarah J. Maas's novel, A Court of Frost and Starlight. In September, we'll begin Season 5, where we will be covering the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. And launching in January 2024, we will begin Sarah J. Maas's Crescent City series with Season 6 covering House of Earth and Blood.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a weekly mini episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. Bye. And now this week's feature review from Apple Podcasts.
This review is from Anonymous in Australia, titled, "Don't listen to this podcast if... ...
What? ...
You want to be able to have a life. It is so addictive. I'm actually grateful I only stumbled across it a month or so ago because I've been able to binge it. It's single-handedly fueling me getting into a fitness routine because I literally only go walking to listen to this show. Jac and Amy are the American besties everyone wants to drink wine and talk books with. Simultaneously really smart and very funny. Would rate 10 stars if I could.
Can I put that on my dating profile as just her review? Like, am I allowed to do that?
Why not?
Like, actually, I should.
You should.
Start putting all these reviews on my dating profile. Like,
I'm funny.
Anonymous from Australia says, I'm funny and smart. That is the nicest review. Thank you.
It's amazing. I didn't set out for anyone to lose their life because of the podcast, but I'm really happy that you love it so much.
Yeah. I've heard that social lives are overrated and us is better.
It says who?
You and me, because we spend so much time together.
We gave up our social lives for the podcast.
Yeah, but when we do have a social life, it's you and me at a book bar.
It's true. It's true. Welcome to the club, folks.
Welcome to the club. You know, I really hope one day we can go drink wine with all of our listeners. That's all I really want. Imagine if we do a meetup, it has to be sponsored by some kind of wine company.
Agreed.
Because I just want everyone to be like, all right, let's all have a glass of wine together. Unless you're underage, then we'll look the other way. If you'd like your review read on the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star written review.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.